Hello, welcome back to MFWoodShop. Today I'm going to build this beautiful maple box. I am very pleased the way this turned out, and I can't wait to show you the top of this box. It's just turned out perfect, and the top of the box has kind of a sine waves or hills and valleys, if you will, and it just turned out beautiful. The top of it is curly maple, and the perimeter or the casework of the box is bark pocket maple. Now, everything else is standard box construction. I got 45-degree miters for the corners, and they're reinforced with walnut splines. And then just some simple brass hardware on the back. And then what we're going to focus on today is the top here. So let's get started, and I'll walk you through this process. The first thing I'm going to do here is to create the quarter inch by quarter inch rabbet on the two long sides. The cross grain rabbets, I'll have to wait until I get the rest of the piece done. So let's create those rabbets. The next thing I want to do is set the blade height to my test piece, which is roughly 3/8 inch deep. The next thing to do is to set up the stop that I need. Now this stop is made up of a scrap piece of plywood with some T-nuts. The bolts go through those T-nuts with a slot in this other piece of board. Now if I was doing more than one of these, I would redesign this piece. I would make this scrap piece a lot longer, maybe 4 or 5 inches longer on each side, so I can actually use those for a clamp down here. Also, I would make this piece of plywood wider or longer so I could actually use this piece to slide this closer to the blade. This is the only scrap piece that I had laying around, so this is going to have to work for me. Okay, so I spent a few seconds making sure that this piece is perfectly square with the miter slot. So that is perfectly square. I'm going to tighten down my clamps now. So the next thing I'm going to do is make a witness mark for my blades. So right up against the right side of the blade, I'm going to make a little mark. Do the same thing on the left side. So the way this is going to work is this will tell me where the blade is, and then the length of the piece determines where it's going to plunge down into the wood. So this will be flipped, this board will be flipped over, and when I'm ready, all my saw marks will line up with my witness marks, and I'll plunge that down on top of the blade, creating a cove right here where I want them. So when I flip it over, I have them laid out. Step 1 is going to be these. I'll flip it over, do step 1, then I'll add 1 3/4 inches, bringing the piece over here, then I'll do step 2, and so on and so forth. dropped the saw blade where it has all the number 1s. I've pretty much hit the lines where I wanted, and it created the cove exactly where I wanted them. So this is the setup for step number 2. Already got my marks laid out for step number 2, and I added a 1 3/4 inch spacer. Now, like I said at the beginning, if you made the jig longer, you could just move it up 1 3/4 inches instead of adding a spacer. But this is going to work fine. So I'm going to repeat the process, but using the witness for line 2, and that should put me in these areas that I want. So I'll do this side, I'll flip it over, and I'll do this side. So now you can really start to see this shape come about. I got a high peak, a low cove, and then this will create the next high peak here, here, and here, and then these 3 as well. That'll create another high peak. So I'll continue this process until I get, roughly right out into here, and then I'll be finished. So the next one will have to be 3.5 inch spacing for stage 3. What you're actually seeing here is the second board. I had to start the whole process over because I plunged down on the wrong layout line on the first one. I had the masking tape on the second one just to help redefine those layout lines and to make it a little easier on the second one. This really helped when I plunged the board down on the top of the blade. Now with 3 stages complete, you can really start to see the texture that I'm going with. Now I'm not gonna lie, this ain't gonna be easy to sand, and it ain't gonna be fun to sand. This is the only way I can think of to do this. A lot of burning marks, so I'm gonna have to really get at it with the sandpaper. So I'm going to try to get one more stage, stage 4. I'm getting pretty close to the saw blade, so I don't know if I'll be able to. And if I can't, that's no problem, because I'll still have this much of the board left, or for the box. But if I can get out to here, might be a better look for the box. Okay, I got 4 stages complete, and I didn't mess any of them up this time. So you could really start to see the peaks and valleys of this whole piece. And what I'm hoping is once it's all cleaned up, sandpaper, chisels, or whatever I need to do to clean it up, all that grain will actually continue running through the entire piece, and then put dye on it, and hopefully that will look pretty cool. So wish me luck on that. So a straight cut across this one and a straight cut across this one, and then we can create this rabbit. Okay, I know it don't look like much now, but this is the pretty close to final shape. The rest of it will have to be hand sanding, chisel work, cleanup, scrapers, whatever I can do to get rid of these burn marks and to make everything flow nice. So the rest of it is all handwork from here, and I'll show you some of that as I go on. So here I'm just using the chisel to get rid of the high spots and to separate each row of sine waves. So you can imagine how hard it is to sand these profiles, and I've used several different things here to accomplish the profile sanding. So I've tried chisels to clean up as much as I can, and that got away the big stuff. I've tried sandpaper molded to or cut to that profile just on a sanding block, and that worked okay. Went back to the chisels. I did a card scraper. Card scraper actually worked pretty good on the outside, but you'll never get that card scraper in here. I've tried the palm sander, and that got rid of some of them, mostly at the tops of the peaks, but right down in here is the hardest place to sand. So I dug out my profile sander, it's an oldie, and I took out one of the bits, or the profile shapes, and what I did was cut it to that profile, which is the same as this, and that's what's on there now. So it has a slight cove to it, and the profile goes like this, much like a jigsaw action, I guess, back and forth. And I tell you what, it actually works a lot better than what I was hoping. So that's what I've been getting the coves down at the bottom sanded out with. I really love the way this box turned out. I am so pleased with the top of this box. The sine wave pattern is what I'm calling it, or hills and valleys, if you will. It really turned out a lot better than I was expecting it to. And with the curly maple just giving it an extra little bit of depth, I really like the way that turned out. So I'm very pleased on how that turned out. The rest of the box, just standard construction, 45-degree corners with walnut splines spaced evenly apart, and some simple brass hinges. Now on the inside of the box, I got more of that bark pocket maple for the bottom, and then of course the bottom side of that curly maple shows on the bottom side of the lid, and that just looks awesome if you ask me. What I would do differently with this box, I wouldn't change anything as far as the top goes. I would do it exactly the same way. What I would do differently on the box itself is make this a little thinner. Right now it's 3/4 inch thick right here, and you know the box itself is 3/4 inch thick, and it's just a little chunky for me, but the box is heavy, it's strong, it looks good. The only thing I need to do is get a brass chain or something to hold the lid up. I went down to buy one, but they just didn't have anything that I liked, so I opted not to put one in for the end of the video, but I will end up putting some sort of brass chain or something just to hold the lid. Other than that, everything else turned out beautiful, and I'm very pleased the way this turned out. On the bottom, I just put some little felt rubber feet on it, and that just finishes it off. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you don't mind, give me a thumbs up. And go check out my second channel, MFWoodShop 2. And there I do some behind the scenes, and sometimes you get a sneak peek of what's coming up on my channel. So go check that out. And as always, I'll see you next time.